All right, hello everybody, and welcome to the August event for Quill and Blade. This is our monthly live event where we come and ramble at you with things that we hope that you're interested in, and if not, then for the next event we try to find new things that we hope you're interested in. So we're pretty excited about that. We are, of course, about a month out from BronyCon, so we covered that last time. But Crystal and I do have a nice little agenda today, and we'll start with generally what excites people the most, and that's the Quarter 3 cameo call. All right. So now, of course, what is a cameo call, you might ask? Well, that's very simple. The cameo call is the best and pretty much only way that you can get a OC into a Quill and Blade story. Typically, of course, you can do this a little bit with Patreon, but in general, for everybody else, this is the only way in. Now, we've done these in the past, and the way it works is we ask you to fill out a simple form with your OC's information, and we typically give you a week to do so, which is exactly what's going to happen. We'll put the form out later today, and we will hold that call for a week. And once the week's over, we will randomly draw 6 winners. I'm sorry, is that correct? Yes, 5 winners. The other 6. 5 winners, and those 5 winners will, of course, receive the prize. So there are 2 grand prizes this time, which we're pretty excited about, and 3 second prizes. Now, I would also like to say, everybody please thank your patrons for this, because it's due to them that we are doing quarterly Scene of the Quarters instead of just whenever we feel about it. So really, truly, patrons, thank you, and anybody that's not a patron, thank them, because they are the driving force with this. Okay, so let's talk about what the grand prize is. Yes, you can submit existing OCs. That's not a problem. So the grand prize, of course, is one scene in a Q&B story. So typically what happens is we will randomly select your OC, and if it's one that will fit a scene later on, then we'll basically write our scene into them, which typically ends up being about 1,000 words, and the character, of course, in some way helps and advances the plot. We'll be doing 2 of those, and then the second prizes are allowing permanent roster slots. So the way our roster works is our patrons at a certain level and above can submit characters to an existing roster. When we come up short needing a pony, say I need a bartender that's just going to have a little short scene, I'll go to the roster and look for a bartender before I just make up yet another pony and make Posted's life more difficult. And that way we kind of have them and they're established, and sometimes they grow from there. So more or less, you will see 3 of those slots and 2 grand prize slots. Oh, well, I'm sorry, Posted. And of course, we'll be doing that. So at the end of this live event or shortly after, because again, we just have to look at the form and update it for the current reality, because we haven't done one of these in a while. The form will be out after this. We will put it into the follow-up notes. It will also be in the show notes on YouTube. And then you will basically have to enter by the end of the week. So we'll do a drawing on next Saturday. We'll let everybody else knows who wins. And then, of course, you'll go into the hopper for us to get to when we get to. So excited about that. Okay, that's thing 1. And of course, that you do not have to be, just to point out, that does not require any sort of patronage to do. That's for anybody and everybody. There's no any shape or form issue that you have to do. You just have to fill out a form. No purchase necessary. Beyond that, I just want to let everybody know that if you have been waiting to be a patron but haven't had slots available, we have opened up some additional slots after doing some rearranging. We feel we can keep up with that level of people. So if that's something you're interested in, that's fine too. And if not, also totally doesn't matter with us. Okay, so again, look for that form later today. You have a week to do it. Anyone can enter. No purchase necessary. Random drawing. And that's going to do it for us on that one. So that is the Q3 cameo call. The next cameo call, provided our patronage remains where it is, will be in 3 months for the winter cameo call, the Christmassy one, around November time. Okay. Which also kind of brings up a few little things on that. So again, the cameo call was based on the level of patronage that some of your fellow readers have done, and thank them for that. All right. Crystal is going to follow this up, providing she has got the YouTube situation handled. She seems to be having concerns. But she has been initiating a project lately that has been a lot of fun, and that's the Authors Anonymous. So, Crystal, are you ready to discuss Authors Anonymous?
Sure, I'm just going to hope the YouTube's working, and if it's not, then I'm going to rely on Posted as always. So the Authors Anonymous was actually Arrowhead's idea, who is one of our forum moderators, our newest one. So for those who aren't aware of it, the Authors Anonymous was basically a here is a prompt, which the first one was, I don't remember the exact wording of it, but it was more or less the summer fair is in full swing, but an unexpected guest arrives. Which was hopefully vague enough to let people have some creative fun with it. We got 5 or 6 submissions. As far as I looked, they all got some kind of feedback. Really, what I will need is people who did participate, how they felt about it. Was it worth doing again? Was it a positive experience? Or was this just kind of a waste of everyone's time? I'm hoping it wasn't that. But it did seem like people participated, people did seem interested, and people then did participate in the act of giving feedback, which was kind of the whole point. Unfortunately, since people can't talk, this isn't exactly a good forum for the whole getting feedback, but if you did participate in it, I would love to hear what you thought. And that is the end of my spiel.
There you go. And of course, you can provide that feedback in the public chat. We are monitoring that as we go along. But we'll be doing another prompt somewhat soon. Crystal will have another one. But hopefully y'all enjoyed that. And, it's something that we'd like to do because, again, one of the big things we try to do here at Quill and Blade is encourage people to write. As long as it's a passion and interest, you should feel comfortable doing it. And that's what this community is all about. Having a group of people that will, listen and try to help you out. Within reason, of course. Okay. And along those lines, as you provide feedback, and again, we'll have another prompt up here probably this week. Is that about right?
Yeah.
This week. Okay. We're also going to move on to this week's writing workshop, or I'm sorry, this event's writing workshop. And we took a poll, and the massive, overwhelming winner, I think by like a 4-to-1 margin, was dealing with negative or no feedback. Is that correct?
Yes, the last time I looked at the poll, it was far and ahead the lead.
Okay, far and ahead the lead. Very well. So let's discuss that. Now, I don't remember, did you have any specific anecdotes that you wanted to talk about like we did with the last one with world building, or did you want me to launch straight into it?
Well, I can start off because I do have some, this is the last time I used my teenage writing juvenile quartz as an example. I think I want to make an example of that again. So really what I want to say is, first thing is first, if you really like a movie and you went out and you saw it in theaters and you loved it, but then you read a review where someone said that it was terrible and had all these plot holes and it was no good and the characters were shallow, does that actually make it a terrible movie, or did it just not work for that person because you enjoyed it? Other people probably enjoyed it. You are probably not the only person that enjoyed it, and that person's probably not the only person that didn't enjoy it. Criticism is really subjective. Not that it's always subjective. There is just sometimes things that are just legitimately bad, and they can still be enjoyed, but they can, have room for improvement, or they can be flawed, etc., etc. I'm trying to look at my notes, but they are behind the things. I forgot that I can't have another window open as I'm talking, so this is kind of making me a little nervous. Okay, so juvenile quartz, that's what I wanted to tie back into. So, I think most of us can agree that a lot of what Juvenile Quartz wrote was terrible. There was edgy catboys, there was terrible dialogue, there was psychotic lycanthropes, there was stuff all over the place. The Dragon Ball Z thing was, not that anyone has read it because it never saw the light of day, was, overpowered wish fulfillment Mary Sue that threw a rock around the world to hit Vegeta in the head. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense. That would be, in my opinion, a terrible fanfic. But that doesn't make me a terrible writer. I was a growing writer. I was a learning writer. The point I guess I'm trying to make, and I'm getting distracted by chat, is that if you write something and someone says it's terrible, that doesn't mean A, that it necessarily is, and or B, that you are a terrible writer. We all have to start somewhere. All of us were terrible walkers when we were babies, and then we got better at walking. Most of us were terrible at bike riding, and then eventually we got better at bike riding. Writing. Writing is really no different. I mean, it's you start off, you don't really know what you're doing. You have to figure out style and voice and characterization and all of those things, and eventually you get better. You have to keep that in mind when you post something and you get the negative feedback. And the people who tell you, like, oh my God, you really need to, go over this and you really need to write this again, or you need to never write again. Just because people say it doesn't necessarily make it true, and also, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to ignore it either. It just means that you have to grow as a writer. If you get no feedback, because that's, comes up a lot, is, I posted my story and no one is commenting, I'm not getting any, I'm only getting these upvotes and downvotes, or I'm getting lots of downvotes. Well, hey, you know what the good thing about a downvote is? It means someone saw it. Maybe they didn't read it, but they saw it. So you made an impact on someone in some way. Maybe just not the impact you wanted. But Helical's making good points in chat. It is really hard to get no feedback, and I completely understand that. I have been writing for 13 years before I started writing Wishes, and Wishes was the only thing that I've ever gotten feedback on. Like, no one really ever cared about what I wrote, and I know that kind of seems weird because some of you people have this image that I just kind of like started writing Wishes and that was the beginning and it got, was popular from the get-go. It wasn't. I mean, it eventually got somewhere where people started noticing it, but it also wasn't the first thing I ever wrote. I have tons of writing that no one ever cared about. I actually did post some stuff on Femfic Jet Canon. They were things. I don't like to think about them. They existed. They're in the juvenile courts folder because I consider them of that caliber of writing. But really, the best advice I can give you about getting no feedback when you've put all this effort and energy and love and passion into something you've written is to remember why you wrote it. Did you write it because you really wanted people to see it? If that's the only reason that you're writing, then maybe you need to look at another hobby or find a reason to write out of love and passion and happiness and all of that whatnot. Because that's the number one reason I continue to write, is because I love it. Whether you guys like it or not doesn't, at the end of the day, matter. And I really hope all of you who are writing, and if you are struggling with writing, that you're writing from a place of love, because that is better than any feedback anyone can give you. And that's my ending of my rambling spiel. Thank you all for listening.
Well done. So to kind of continue with that from my take on it, and what's really important is, again, we talk about this a lot and people may or may not follow or agree, but you have to write for yourself. And writing for any other reason just doesn't make any sense. Because when you talk about writing fan fiction, there's no future in it, right? No one is going to buy My Pony work and turn it into a actual commercial project. Can't happen, not going to happen. Nobody is going to take mine and turn it into an episode. It's not going to happen. Nobody's going to suddenly hire me on to be a pony writer. It's not going to happen. For every 50 Shades of Grey, there's a million not 50 Shades of Grey. And that's pretty much is that. It's an unrealistic expectation. So when you do write, you have to ask yourself, truly, am I writing this story because I want to enjoy it, because I like to write, because I have a story I want to tell, or am I writing this story because I want to get followers, favorites, and upvotes? And, my personal opinion, and this is just an opinion, you do what's right. The second one is not sustainable. You can't simply write just because you hope to get upvotes, just because you hope to get followers, just because you hope to do these things. It's just not sustainable because you let someone else control your destiny. Whereas for me, whether something's well received or not, at the end of the day, if I had fun writing it, if I had fun working with my wife on it, and I'm happy with what I turned around, then it's good for me. Is Memoirs a perfect story? No. Are there problems in it? Yes. But do I really love the fact that, when I look over, there's a hardcover bound copy of it with a beautiful cover. It's all well done. And it's something that I just wanted to see if I can do. Yeah, I'm very, very happy with that. I did it for me. I did it to do it with my wife. And that's really what you have to look at when it comes to, no feedback or negative feedback. Just, why did you do it? What's your feedback? How do you feel about it? So as long as you believe in it, you can't really ever have no feedback. But at the same time, I also understand that when I do get positive feedback, when I do get favorites, when I do see all these things, I really do enjoy it. There's no lie. It's not why I write, but it's a very positive thing. So let's talk about how to deal with the negative and talk how to deal with the absence of feedback, right? From my perspective. So again, we give the usual speech of write for yourself, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. Ansel, yes, we know that. We can't do it or we don't want to. We don't care. Tell us how to deal with the bad stuff. Okay, cool. Let's talk about how to deal with the bad stuff. So if you have no feedback, that psychologically can often be as bad as negative feedback, sometimes worse. There's certainly a lot of effort that shows, in management studies, employees that receive no feedback feel the same way as employees that get negative feedback. Because at least with negative feedback, somebody looked at it. There's a understanding of wanting to do something that matters. So again, if you work for a company and you put in a ton of effort and no one cares, it's tough. That feels like, well, what's the point if you're not shredding for yourself? So, you know, here's what you need to do when it comes to no feedback. You have to keep at it, is really the short of it. So, when you look at fan fiction as a delivery system, there is no real way of putting it other than to say it sucks. And I'm not knocking fan fiction or anything like that. I'm just saying that as a delivery system, it's not designed for you to get noticed as a new author. It's not. It doesn't exist. So in that regard, it sucks, which is fine because that's not what it's designed for, right? That's not the point of it. That's not why. So it's not like it's to blame, but as a new author, it's very, very challenging. So how do you get noticed? Well, again, like Crystal said, a lot of people have this strange notion that I was popular the second I set my feet on Earth, and that everyone saw memoirs, and I was grandfathered in, and I was some sort of famous writer. No. When I started on film fiction, no one knew me. I wasn't big in the pony community. I wasn't even talking about ponies to people. I just thought because Crystal talked about, oh, it's pretty cool. You know, I had been posting stories a little bit on DeviantArt before I finally decided to move to film. So I may have had a following of, let's say, a massive 3 people, maybe 4. We'll see. And again, that's just kind of how it was. I don't think I had anybody consistently. So what happened was, I posted on film, and there wasn't a lot going on there as far as that goes. But what I did is I consistently posted updates. And a lot of the most earliest ones my reader will tell you I kept seeing you in the recent update that I saw your story so many times I figured, okay, at least I'll give it a shot. I keep seeing the stupid thing. And basically it's my persistence that sort of shifted people into at least giving memoirs a try. Now, of course, again, you have to have the goods, right? I mean, it has to at least be decent. And the first cut of memoirs, kind of rough. There's no way of putting it. I mean, I had been so rusty and I hadn't written anything in a while. So I wasn't exactly the best presentation. But again, I'm at a point in my life where I've been writing and practicing long enough where, even my weaker stuff may still be more advanced than someone that's just starting out that's 12, right? I'm not better than them. I have more experience. And that's what's really key here. People like to say, you're a good writer, you're a bad writer. There's no such thing. It's absolute BS. There is no such thing as a good writer and and a bad writer. There's an experienced writer and an unexperienced writer. And of course, everybody has different levels they can reach. But at the end of the day, if I wanted to, and I wanted to spend all the time in that I could, and I wanted to pick up a pen and start drawing, I may never get to where Rosby is, but I'm certainly going to be better than I am today because practice is really all that matters. So if you're getting no feedback, you need to just keep going. You just have to keep going because sooner or later someone will notice you. And as some advice, you may want to consider groups, right? So if you write a particular kind of story, right? So I was writing, a Royal Guard story, and that was an advantage for me. I put it in a lot of the Royal Guard and OC groups, which helps me get noticed because those are a better delivery system than the front page. And that was a big thing. So consistency, hitting up the groups, and this has worked for other writers that have kind of done that. So that's how we talk about no feedback. But I'm going to turn it over to Crystal real quick because she has something she wants to say.
Yes, I did. I listening to him and seeing some of the chat reminded me of something. Um, subject matter. Subject matter is very important in the sense, in a sense, right? I don't want to write Klopp. I have no interest in that. However, if I did, I acknowledge that that would get me a lot of followers. So that's one of the. So for Ansel, no offense to him whatsoever, and I know he won't take any. One of the reasons why Memoirs did well to begin with is because of it touched on royal guards, which there are a lot of people who are really interested in royal guards and want to see other people's takes on the royal guard and the pony military, for lack of a better phrase. So that's a big draw. Changelings draw in certain crowds. Princess Luna was also tagged in it, so that draws people in. Is Princess Luna's house guard? That's an intriguing thing. Crystal's Wishes, I don't really think a lot of people clicked on that one like looking for it. I think almost everyone either clicked through from Memoirs or just was so tired of seeing it appear on, because there's just so many freaking chapters, appear on the bottom 3 slots of the feature box. So they were just like, what is this, I'm not saying that's everyone, but I think most people kind of one of those two ways. And that's because as a cover art, not cover art, but cover page, subject matter, it's like it's a gal who likes romance and writes. Like that's not really a draw for a lot of people. Maybe Shog's. I knew I was gonna try. So subject matter is important. If being noticed is really important to you, then go for one of those popular or intriguing or hook kind of things. Still try to write because you love it, but if you really want to be noticed or you just really want to get people to see things, then go, if you like writing that, Klopp, there you go, Klopp. Or as Posted just said, write a story about the recent episode with the 24 hours following it, those kind of things.
Yeah.
That's all I really wanted to say, was just subject matter is actually very important, but also shouldn't stop you from writing what you want to write if what you want to write isn't within one of those popular hooks.
Exactly. And again, that comes down to do you want to be popular or do you want to write what you want to write? And that's what's important. So you just have to look at that. And of course, let's talk about negative feedback. So we've covered general stuff. We've covered being unnoticed. Well, being unnoticed is very different than being, necessarily negative noticed. So I'm going to throw Crystal completely under the bus here and talk about when all of y'all are like, oh, you don't understand. We do. Let me put it this way. So Crystal and I have been married for almost 4 years. We've been together for about 6. And I'd say 98% of our actual fights in this marriage are directly related to writing and film fiction. Literally. Like, our marriage is really solid, but almost every big fight we have is related to this. And I'm going to take you way back to the beginning. So when Crystal first started writing Wishes, she basically had a really negative outlook. And that negative outlook was, and I'm going to use some profanity here, because there's no other way of doing it. Every random jazz hands that posted on her story was better than her. And that was her outlook in life. So if basically she came back and someone posted a comment to the effect of, I didn't like that Crystal's hair was pink, she'd immediately assume she was wrong and go in and change it to blue. That's what Crystal did. Literally. If you made a negative comment, she reacted to it immediately and went and tried to, quote unquote, fix it. So I, on the other hand, would basically say to her, why do you think these people are better than you? Why do they know your story better than you? Why are they smarter than you? And truthfully, she didn't like that, and she would fight with me about it. Like, why? And she would basically say, "Well, why are you better than these people?" I'm like, "Because I'm your husband." That's these were fights that we had. So let's explore this a little bit. Is all negative feedback valuable? No, it is not. Is some negative feedback valuable? No, it is not. Do you know why? Because no negative feedback is ever delivered that way is ever valuable. Because even if there is useful information in there, it's been presented in a way that is so poor that it can't be useful. So here's a very simple example. If I truly take exception with something Crystal wrote, and I'll give an actual example. In the what?
Spilling my secrets.
So in one of the recent Lovey chapters, I was doing the edit, and Magnate made the comment that he was talking about divorce, and Magnate had a very strong reaction to it, but the way that he did it was inconsistent with our view of the ponies. So, or really the way he was presented. So now I could have done that two ways. Way one, I could have just said, Magnate wouldn't say that shit. Whatever, you're stupid. Which that's how some people comment. Or I could have did what I did and say, hey, could you look at Magnate's line here again? Do you really think that's consistent with the worldview? And that's tough. But, she's like, okay, I see what you're saying. So when someone's on your story, how do you address negative feedback? When someone looks at something I've done and says, this is bullshit, then I say, you're a worthless human being. Move on. And there's literally nothing of value that I can glean from this. Your presentation is horrible. You're clearly not trying to better the work. You are not worth 2 minutes of thought at all, because what value can I get at it? I can't fix this is bullshit. I can't fix your story sucks. I can't fix I hate this. Why do you hate it? Why is it bullshit? Why does it suck? So when you look at negative feedback, you really have to look at that. Two, one, can you glean anything out of their crappy delivery at all? And if you can't, they're not worth your time. If you can, try to separate yourself from it. But again, their presentation sucked, so it's not there too. So basically, when I look at negative feedback, and I get negative feedback, and that's fine, I look at constructive feedback that's, maybe counter to what I've done. So, for instance, I found, someone say, I found Secrets too dark, or I found Silent Night taking on too much, or I find him acting out of character here, here's why, based on this. That's incredibly useful. And that's why you can't confuse negative feedback with, constructive feedback. So that's the sort of thing. When you look at this stuff that you have to look at, is everything you're going to write perfect? No, absolutely not. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to write stuff, and then after the fact, you're going to go, man, I really wish I hadn't written it that way, or I really wish I could change it. And, it's fine, because until you print it in a book, you actually can change it. Once you print it in that book, it's pretty much done, because you can't go back in there. So that's kind of why, when I look at negative feedback, I ignore a lot of people and I write them off. I'm sorry, but that's the sort of thing. And some of that people may call that arrogant or foolish, but it's not, because again, you can't glean anything out of this sucks. Now, let's talk about a different case though. So let's say you do get something where, and again, I'm going to use the example of Crystal and I talking about Magnate. Let's say, what?
Just you keep talking about me.
Well, I can't pick on a random person. They might actually take it personal.
You can pick on yourself, but okay, fine.
No, I didn't say horrible. I think I said useless. I believe I said useless. So anyway, let's say Crystal really did feel like Magnate's view on divorce was, really serious. And so she could then explain, okay, here is why, here is why, here is why. because maybe I'm not right. And that's the most important thing. Just because someone gives you constructive feedback doesn't mean it's right. And now Crystal wrote a great blog post about this called personal feedback, right? Personal criticism?
Yeah, personal criticisms.
Okay. So there is a difference between constructive criticism and personal criticism. So for instance, if someone says, I really wish you had gone into more detail in this battle. That is a valid criticism. That is directed. It makes sense. I understand it. Was it right for me? Well, the answer in my case, and again, this is specifically my case, is no, for a couple of reasons. One, the battle isn't necessarily the intention of the chapter. And two, I really don't like writing combat. I like writing royal guards and stuff, but when I think of writing really kind of detailed combat situations, there's a lot of people that do that a lot better. And I think of wing. Like if I'm going to go read a battle scene, I'm going to go read something Ring wrote. I'm not going to go read something Ansel wrote. And that's just because I haven't invested the time in learning how to do that, whereas it's clear that Wing has. And again, this is what we talk about. I don't believe in terrible writers. I believe that there are skilled and unskilled. And when it comes to challenging myself to write better combat scenes, I don't do it. And that's a choice. That's a personal choice, and it makes it a failing. So, that's the thing. So when you look at getting feedback from somebody, you really have to ask yourself a couple of questions. Is this even useful criticism, or is it just some negative comment by a dork on the internet? I mean, again, it's useless when you just say, this sucks. Great. Thanks, jackass. Move along. You're useless. So, that's one. Two is, if it's not just some horrible negative comment, can you use it? Or, the other thing is does this person understand your story well enough to make this criticism? And the answer may be no. And the answer may be yes. So, as an example, there's been some things that Posted have pointed out to me, and he's right. That's just how it is. And, I go back and I look at it and I'm like, yep, I see why you got that. I see completely. And, that's not really what I was trying to do, but I kind of not real thrilled with that now. And you got me there. So that's just a sort of a thing that you have to look at, and you have to say, yep, I'm going with it. And then the other sort of things where there was in my case, a lot of uproar over me skipping a year and how it would quote unquote ruin the story. Well, I don't really think it ruined a story, and it was really important to do it, and that was always the plan. So, these people that were commenting immediately right after the chapter don't know better. They don't know any better. They don't have hindsight. And then, it's gut reaction. So essentially, on the receiving of feedback, folks, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about giving feedback, you have to look at those things. Is this a valid comment from a useful human being? If no, ignore. Is this a comment that can be useful? If yes, try to learn from it. If no, you just have to shift it and not be a crystal and try to address every single one.
Hey.
So that's kind of it. I'm gonna let Crystal, if she wants to take over for a second, I'm gonna catch my breath, have a sip of water, and then we'll talk about giving feedback.
I don't know if I want to anymore. I feel so picked upon. I will, while he's taking a long sip of water, no. I do want to jump in before he talks about giving feedback. Taking feedback is something that is a skill that I have had to learn. When Ansel and I first met, I was working on a website tool for him, so this isn't relevant to writing, but it's still about taking criticism, bear with me. And I shared with him my first draft of it, and he had some adjustments he wanted made, and this will tie into his giving criticism because he had to learn a little bit how to give criticism to someone like me who cried. We were on the voice chat, and I just started crying because I felt terrible. I felt like I had failed. So I've, over the years, had to learn, and especially with moving into this writing project, this has really forced me to learn how to take criticism. I think the best advice I can give is to never respond right away. I am horrible about doing this. Often I have had so many times where someone will comment about something or criticize about something, and I will just respond immediately because I have something to say and I want to say it right now, and I just want you to know how I feel about this, and I am so sorry, and like all these things. And then once I cool down, usually by lying on the couch and watching TV while like quietly crying to myself, is then eventually I cycle into like the kind of mad state, and then eventually I'll kind of cool off. Ansel can definitely attest to all the times where someone has said something or sent a private message or all these things, and he'll be telling me like, "Calm down, just take it. No, I'm going to tell them right now how I feel about this. Don't do that, okay? It's not good for you. It's not good for them. It's just not good. Just anytime something upsets you or makes you angry, please just walk away. Please, for my sake, be better than me and walk away just for a little bit. You can respond later, just when you're not angry or crying."
Okay, good point. Which is why it's so funny. You all think that I'm the harsher of the two of us. She's got you all fooled. Anyway, let's talk about giving criticism, which ties directly into what Crystal says. So, one of the things and ways I had to grow as an adult and as a husband was on giving criticism, because I am a very direct, straightforward guy. And I mean very direct and straightforward. Now, one of the things I learned when giving criticism to a spouse or a beloved cousin is you have to fluff them a little before you just ram it in. And that is safe for work. Don't make it dirty on yourself. So how I originally gave criticism is autocratic. So if I had something that had 5 things on it, and thing 1, 2, 3, and 4 are fine, I'm just going to pass them up because they're done, and then point out the 5th thing. I need you to tweak this. As I learned, that resulted in tears and me feeling bad. So, that's what you kind of have to look like when you make it. And it's a good lesson to give criticism. So now, when I give criticism to, my wife or my beloved cousin, I will start, by saying, this is what I liked. Okay? So this puts a person in a mood that they're not being attacked, right? Or that the work's not useless. So let's say I read Crystal's chapter, and I'll give an example because I did the last Hopes editing, and I would say, I liked it. This is good. I like this, and then I scrolled back up and I said, this transition is fast or weak or something to that effect. But it was the last thing I pointed out after I pointed out everything I liked, which she took very well. Plus, she's also gotten better at taking it. But basically, I see. And of course, in addition to it, though, I didn't just say, I didn't like this or this. Yes, I basically said, I feel like she went manic pixie really fast here, and that there isn't a lot of slow, build to this. And so, 1, I started by presenting things I liked. 2, I identified an area I felt needed work. And 3, I gave clear reasons why I did not feel it worked. So again, that's very helpful. That's actionable. But where she still has to check, is Ansel right? Because I could have still been wrong. That's the thing. It could have still been a personal preference. I could have still been wrong. In this case, she did not feel I was, so she made some changes. But that's the whole point. So when you give feedback to an author, providing you're not a horrible human being and you're actually trying to help them versus just basically spewing your opinion and trying to get attention as, like, say, a teenager on a reality show, assuming that's what you're there for, especially when it comes to, this community and talking about other authors and each other, you really have to start by at least giving the author some credit and talking about, hey, I liked this and this. Give them something, just something that lets them know that you're not there just to hurt them, that you're not there just to kick them in the beanbag and walk off. That lets them know that, hey, this person may actually be trying to do something. Then you kick them in the beanbag once you've lulled them into a false sense of security by pointing out this sort of, okay, I did not like this particular area, and this is why. So if you don't like something, give them a reason. Please just give some kind of reason. And it could just be simple like, it's like, I don't like this portion because I think O is a raging bitch and I wish she was dead and I don't like her in the story. But then at least the author will know, okay, this person just doesn't like O. And there's nothing we can do about that. And that's that. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but at least then, Crystal's not going to go and try to change the whole story because, again, some people just aren't going to like O. Some people just aren't going to like Silent Night, and that's okay. But you can't change Silent Night because of that. So, that's what it looks like when it talking about giving criticism. So when people talk about, I want to give direct criticism, well, then be prepared to have your criticism and your opinion valued less. Because, again, presentation is incredibly important. It really is. And for some people, okay, that may seem like an annoyance. That may seem like you have to go through hoops, but you're approaching another human being. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. You have to show them that you're not just there to hurt them. So, that's kind of what I look at when I do feedback. And I have given, some negative feedback. And, it happens. I don't like everything I read. There have been some things from this community that I did not enjoy. Does that mean they were bad? No. Does that mean the writer's terrible? No. I just didn't enjoy them. And that's fine. It's as simple as that. There are people that aren't going to enjoy my stuff. It's cool. So, but I'm not going to go on there and just be like, this sucked. Now, at the same time, you can go on there and just say, I did not enjoy this. That's not a value judgment on the work. It's still useless, but that's what you can do. At least, and then if you want to add to it and say, and this is why I didn't, that might be useful to the writer, might not. So hopefully, that will help people.
I have something. I keep having thoughts as Ansel's talking. One example I do have off the top of my head of a personal criticism that is valid, just not for me, was when High Horse, and spoilers for anyone who hasn't read Wishes, blah blah blah. When High Horse talked about dropping out of school to move to Ponyville. I think DJ Thomp was one of the people who commented. I could be mistaken, and if I'm throwing you under a bus, oh well, you're a cool guy, you can handle it. I think DJ Thomp had commented saying that he didn't approve of that of High Horse's decision. He didn't like it because he values working in an academic setting. He really values that, and that's a completely valid, thing to feel, and that's a completely valid, reason to not like a decision. I'm not going to change it because that's the plan that I had, and I don't think he ever expected me to. But people can voice those kind of things. Hi, DJ. People can voice those kind of things, and that doesn't mean you have to change it. That was a criticism that I had to. I know it was a long time ago. That you have to change that. The other thing I wanted to say was, and I am completely blanking on it. Blah blah blah. What was he talking about at the end? I don't know if I can remember anymore. It might be gone.
Presentation, not enjoying something.
Meh. As Shaza, and I'm just going to keep saying it that way. I remember what I wanted to say now. Oh, I pronounce her name O. I don't think that. Meh. Yeah, y'all can pronounce it however you want, but I say O just because I like the oh my gosh jokes. Yes, that's a character criticism, not an author criticism. But my point is being able to discern that is I could see being a really, because I think at that time I had some confidence, but like if I had just started out and that was like my first chapter and that was one of my first comments, I could see that making me really feel like, oh, I've made a mistake. I shouldn't have done this. I've gone down the wrong path. Y'all can stop with your puns now. You're being very funny. So that's a good example of a criticism that is absolutely targeted to the character, not you as an author, that that you could, as a growing writer, take that way. So that's another situation where you have to step back and, is this targeting me and my writing, or is this just targeting my character? And that does now remember one of the actual important things I wanted to say. as a person giving criticisms, you don't have to do this. You are all wonderful people who are adults and can make your own decisions, and I trust you. But I, as an author, really prefer it if things that are not a discussion or things like that were in private message. So if you read O's story and you're like, this made me feel nothing for her, I really don't care about her, this blah, 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 this kind of things. I'd prefer those in a PM personally because I see the comment section, and this varies from person to person. I see the comment section as a place of discussion and that kind of thing, whereas that is targeted directly to me, and just kind of putting in the comment section feels like waving dirty laundry. And it's just like, how am I supposed to respond to that? I can't change your opinion. I can't fix that. That's just how the story is. Y'all can do what you want, but I do totally prefer private messages for criticisms like that.
Yep, which is fair. I don't particularly care one way or the other for that. Is my general thought for my comment sections, and again, this is why for everything to be, as long as it's constructive or rather clear like that, and then not an attack on, say, a work or an author, I personally don't mind. So it's a thing. I think that's good discussion if someone hates a character, and that's perfectly fine with me. But that's just my opinion. And again, that's why everyone's different. And some people might prefer to take things in private messages. And this is not criticism related, but just an example. Like, I find it useless to get corrections to spelling and whatnot in comments, because once you fix it, that comment just lingers there like a turd in a punch bowl. It's already been corrected, but there's that turd always floating by.
Yeah, and that is definitely a subjective thing. Ansel doesn't care. I kind of do, in the sense of, if someone is coming into a story and hasn't read it yet, I feel I'm just going to dig myself into a hole. So y'all do what you want. Yes, Biker Dash. We really, really prefer that be in private message because, again, once it's corrected, it is now basically dirty laundry waving in the comments section, and that's not for anyone at all a discussion. Like, this word is misspelled. That is a fact. Good job.
It is literally in my short bio, yes. Okay.
That, and it also feels kind of braggy putting in a comment section. I'm not saying that any of you mean it that way when you do that. It just feels kind of like, look what I found, guys. I found a typo.
Well, so yes. So let's stop there for a minute. I think we've evangelized a bit. Does anyone have any questions or comments, now in the comment section regarding this sort of thing? Maybe where you disagree with us, which is fine. Just don't say, you're wrong. Well, thank you. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, sorry, this workshop is kind of getting rambly and going off topic, and I realized that. There were 2 questions earlier up. I'm going to scroll up and try to find them. Lord, y'all talk a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I get a lot of comments about commas.
Okay, how to distinguish between rough constructive feedback and negative feedback. I guess we kind of did cover that. But if you had anything to say about that, honey.
Again, presentation is very important. Smooth it out before you send it, because again, you, as a commenter, again, when you make a comment, you need to ask yourself, what am I trying to achieve? Am I trying to help this author, or am I just trying to flap something in the breeze so that other people can see it? And again, if you're the first kind of person, you're a great person. If you're the second kind of person, maybe find a different hobby, in my opinion.
I think the question may have been from a writer's perspective.
Oh, from a writer's perspective, again, if it comes in very rough, and it's going to be more difficult to take serious. I mean, that's the problem with it. Again, I got a really ridiculous comment not too long ago, which it's still out there because I don't delete comments. I'm fine with leaving them. Where there might have been something constructive in there. I mean, and there were a few probably constructive things in there, but the commenter was so over the top entitled and arrogant that I basically was just like, nah. I mean, it included things like, you have one more chapter to quote unquote fix this. I'm like, well, you have 0 more chapters because I'm banning you, because this comment is not valuable, and anything useful in it, is gone. So that's again, if you really want to be heard by an author, like truly be heard, how you present your comments really important. I mean, because again, I'll listen, to very reasonable criticism. I'll listen. I mean, I'm fine if people like telling me I don't really like your work, I don't like your story, I don't like Silent Night, I don't like this. Here's why. That doesn't bother me at all. At all. I mean, it really doesn't. Because again, I don't have this anticipation that everyone will like everything I do. But, you know, present it in a way that maybe it's useful to me.
Another question that I have found scrolling back is, what do you think about doing something popular to try and get people interested in your other stuff? I think that's personally a great idea. If you can find the drive to write, if you're working on your story about your OC that you really love, yes, that was you, Jet Cannon, and you're not getting a lot of eyes on it and you really want people to notice it, I personally don't see anything wrong with writing a story just to try and get noticed and to get people to click through. I think that's a great tactic. And so I fully support. I don't know how Anzi feels about it, but I support it. If you can, I couldn't do it because like if I don't love it, then I can't write it. But go for it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I did it. I mean, that's not why chose to write what I wanted. I chose to write that, but I took advantage of it. Let's go with that. But I'm with Crystal. Like, I imagine Crystal and I could write some pretty high caliber clop, that had an element of romance, that had some really dirty stuff, some good fetishes. This isn't ego. I'm just saying, like, I imagine the two of us together could probably put together some really awesome clop, and that's just never gonna happen. I mean, I don't. Uh, I don't think it is, Shaza. I'm sorry. I've written dirty stuff in the past, and I don't think it is. I think I think it's harder in the sense that people just assume that if you just write sex, it's going to be successful. But it's as far as if you're already at the point where you can put together really constructive and good regular non-clop stories, adding the cloppy bits in just it would increase the audience. That's just again, it's an opinion, and we'll never test it because again, I'm not going to do it. I just I don't mind alluding to sexual activity. I don't mind doing that stuff, but I just can't. I don't really want to write about Silent Night ramming crystal wishes. It's not on my agenda.
Another question that was somewhere back there was in regards to writing out of love and passion, which I fully, completely support. What about writing out of want to express yourself? Um, okay, I'm trying to think of how I want to word this. If you mean things like I'm feeling very depressed or I'm having a tough time, I'm struggling with this, et cetera, and just want to get it out. So basically, a vent piece. I don't see anything wrong with that. The only thing I would add to that is being careful with writing a vent piece and then posting it because it's you releasing these pent up depression or anger or whatever's going on. If people react negatively to it, it's going to hurt more than a normal story because this is something deeply personal that you've written. So I support writing them. I caution against posting them if that's what expressing yourself means.
Yes, and I'm going to agree. I think it's very positive to do that. I think it's a good idea. I think letting yourself grow or vent through writing is very very good. But yeah, you are kind of opening your heart a little bit and your emotions, and that can be dangerous. But if you do it, by all means. Now I will say this, and this is not related, but it's also related. If you, this is just personal opinion. I am not a big fan of soapbox stories. So like people that strictly write a story for an agenda, and it's not even done well. Be careful about trying to do that for attention as well. So you know, I'm going to write a story that supports that everyone should have a right and a willingness, and it should be perfectly normal for people to have sex with real dolls and to carry them around in public. Okay, if that's your platform, buddy, that's fine. Um, but you know, if every single one of your stories ends up being about an OC that's struggling with that and fighting about that, eventually no one's going to care. Okay. It just gets so, meh. I don't know how that relates, but just that sort of goes with the whole expressing yourself. Just be careful with that. I mean, if that's every single story, then, maybe you have to ask yourself, why are we doing that?
Well, I think that is our longest writing workshop yet, and most of it was on topic.
Yeah, actually, I'd say I think we did it pretty well. Better than normal, more
I,
prepared.
I hope it helped at least one of you.
Yes. If it helped at least one of you, and everybody got to hear me use a lot of profanity, that's a thing, right? We're gonna have to bleep those out on the YouTube.
I don't know if I can.
Oh well. People say really bad stuff on YouTube all the time. Okay.
So then our next thing on the agenda is I wanted to take a moment to write about. I've used profanity before. If people were listening to in the gaming channel, I can swear it happens. I wanted to talk about my quote unquote writing horizon. Basically, so currently, as those of you who read my stuff know, I am juggling Crystal's Hopes. Yeah, dinosaurs. Well, I don't play dinosaurs anymore because they changed things, but that's you. You can ask a live event. You can drop a question in a live event if you want to hear more about that. I'm going to keep on topic. Writing Horizon. So I'm writing Crystal's Hopes. That I plan to get at least one chapter out every week. I've also got the High Horse story and the lovey-dovey sequel story kind of alternating. So far, it seems to be every other week. That seems to be working for me. Um, I haven't figured out exactly how many chapters I have remaining on the Lovey Dovey, but that one's probably going to finish first. High Horse's story is probably going to go on for a little while, but the Lovey Dovey is going to probably be the first one to finish. Once I finish that, I am probably going to take a break on serials because I really got to get some progress in on Vale. I've gotten some in here and there, but I kind of have overloaded myself with the 3 stories. So Lovey Dovey, I'm going to close that one out. High Horse, I'm going to try to figure out how long that one is going to be and close that one out. And dedicate more and more time to Vale. I have some other little shorts, kind of like the O fic, where it was just a little bit all at once, just throw it out there. I may do more of those. I'm also working on a story kind of in the background for one of our patrons of that level. That one won't be released until it's done and the patron has approved it, but I am also working on that on the sidelines. So my horizon is dimming as I work toward dedicating more time to Vale. But I'll always be writing something because I have way too many ideas to stop writing. So
Okay.
people who read my stuff, that's basically the future.
Jazz hands. And from my perspective, again, due to my work situation, I will be releasing about 1 trials a week and kind of working on non-release. Basically, I've not going to be doing any more serials. So the only serial will be trial. Anything else that comes from me will be a finished product type story. So I've been planning out the first Azubite. I've been discussing and working with Crystal on Vale, and that's kind of where we're at right now. But yeah, that's mine. Very quick update. No change there. Okay, so it is time to move to the Q&A where you ask questions and we answer them. And that's the live event question area. Please at the author in question that you want to. And we will start with Ansel and Crystal. What are your favorite songs, or what is your favorite song, Crystal?
My favorite song, oh my goodness, that's on the spot. I guess right now the song I'm most obsessed with I'm listening to the most is a Swedish song that's in a Princess Tutu anime music video. So that's probably my favorite right now, just because I can't stop listening to it. Yes, Educus, it's that one.
I don't really have one. I'm like Crystal, I'm kind of flighty and whatever I'm listening to at the moment. And lately, I'm not really listening to much of anything. All right, next question. Crystal, Ansel, favorite food?
Does dessert count as a food?
technically.
Then dessert.
Yay. My favorite food, believe it or not, that probably I derived the most enjoyment out of is like a mega salad. So, not when, people think salad, they're like, oh, you mean where they just throw some iceberg lettuce in a bowl and maybe one tomato and one cucumber? No, no. I'm talking mega salads where you start with a bed of spinach, you put in, diced white onions, diced red onions, raw, chopped broccoli, peas, shaved carrots, mushrooms, cucumbers, maybe little bits of squash and zucchini, alfalfa sprouts, radishes. That is what I probably derive the most joy from, is a really tricked out salad. Crystal and Ansel, favorite Pokemon?
Eevee and all of the evolutions. He likes you're yawning into chat.
Sorry. Thousand Island and Ponyta, I guess. Is Ponyta the big one? What's the one after Ponyta?
Rapidash. He only just recently started caring about Pokemon. This is a very recent thing, so please forgive him for his sins.
Okay, next question related to Pokemon. Thoughts on Pokemon Go? Crystal?
I think it is a great way to get people off, like me, off their butts and out actually like discovering sunlight and also discovering things. Like Rosby and I went out and about and we found a whole bunch of the little Pokestops, monuments, whatever, and learned a lot about our area. So that's great. It's also just fun to be somewhere and be like, they're playing Pokemon Go. They're playing Pokemon Go. And on top of that, it's really awesome to see parents out playing with their kids. I love that.
Indeed. And I feel the same way. It's made it easier for me to get Ari out of the house. So that's nice. We've kind of lost a lot of interest lately. I haven't been playing incessantly, but it's fun. It's a good thing.
For the record, Ori, Aurelis is my name in another community.
Oh, sorry. I get confused where I'm at sometimes. All right, next question. Do we have to catch them all? Nope, just the ones I like.
Absolutely, yes. I have obsessive collecting disorder. Thank you very much.
All right, let's see. Crystal, any idea how long it'll be before Crystal the pony gets her story up to where Silent's at currently?
I get this question a lot, actually. And while I greatly appreciate the enthusiasm people have about wanting to see Crystal's side of what's going on currently in Trials, I'm afraid it is going to be a while because there is a very large time gap between them that wasn't shown in Trials that has a huge impact on Crystal's life because she had to be there and living it, and we're going to be seeing that. So it's going to be a while. Just sorry, buckle in and enjoy the ride.
I want to piggyback on that one because basically the goal for that is part of the point of the time skip and part of the method between Trials and Hopes is to not show a bunch of mundane repeated scenes. So we enjoyed that with the previous stories, but sometimes it led to a lot of this is great, but I already saw this, and that's why there will be different time skips and different portions of the story shown by intention.
There will be obviously major scenes that will be shown in both, but on the whole, we're going to try to avoid that because it's just not fun to receive those comments, and also there's very different goals with the two stories, whereas before they were both just kind of more general slice of life heading in the same direction, whereas now my Hopes is about Crystal gaining strength and standing on her own and learning who she is and etc. etc.
Man can't do everything for her.
Man can't do everything for her.
Okay, let's see here. Snorer of Kittens, also known as Rosby. Since you were left out of the Pokemon questions for some reason, what are your answers to the previous Pokemon questions?
Rosby, that's you.
There we go. I was pushing the wrong key on my keyboard.
There you are.
Anyway, that is an excellent question. Oh, wonderful question, Lever. So, to answer your brilliant questions, my favorite Pokemon Absolutely Forever has always been ditto, because I don't know how you couldn't like it. It can be anything you want. Though I so far am fond of all of the current Pokemon that have been shown off for Pokemon Sun and Moon. I am excited for that game. Let's see. Next is thoughts on Pokemon Go. There has not been a day since I downloaded it that I have not been on it. I think that explains my feelings of love. Gotta catch them all. I'm trying, but it's really hard. I only have like half of the 700 Pokemon so far. I don't know if I'll ever make it. Okay, back to you.
Thank you, Snorer of
Well
Kittens.
done.
All right, Crystal and Ansel, do you write to music? And if so, what kind? I'll go first because mine's going to be shorter. Generally, I do not.
Generally, I do. I try. I have a on our on our YouTube Quill and Blade account. I have a playlist of songs that people have suggested or that I've found and added as the Q&B tunes and croons. So I'll listen to that sometimes as just the general thing. Usually I listen to a love music playlist that sometimes, usually I just try to listen to something that relates in some way to the chapter to help get me in that mood and mindset, but most times it's the Q&B tunes and croons.
Okay. Alrighty. I've misclicked somewhere. Okay. Do you snack while writing? If so, what's per snack? I do not. Crystal.
And I do. I pretty much I snack while doing everything, while I'm programming, while I'm doing anything. I like to snack.
That's the value of Pokemon Go.
Yes.
All right. Let's see here. Snorer of Kittens. Do you taunt Ansel and Crystal? If so, what's your favorite taunt?
I only taunt Crystal with threats that she then forgets about, and then I follow through like 3 hours later, and she's always surprised. I don't taunt Ansel because I have to respect my elders.
Thank you.
Yeah, one time Rosby threatened to throw a sandwich in my face, and then 3 hours later he did, and I could not figure out why he had done that.
And I respect Ansel.
Oh,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Rude.
Let's see here. Okay. Ansel Crystal, do you like to type out a whole chapter at a time, or do you multitask? Oh, Post-it says I'm quiet. How about now? So, I would love to type out a whole chapter at a time. That would be wonderful. Chances are I don't get that opportunity anymore. Not like I used to. So what normally happens, I try to do a scene at a time, and I try to limit these chapters lately to 2 to 3 scenes, 2 if I can. And so I'll do a scene at a time. But what I normally do is I will do a chapter, and so today I'll finish Monday's chapter as far as that, like a draft I'm comfortable with sharing. It'll get a read through, and then I'll do a rewrite on it, and that's kind of how I do.
I multitask usually because I'm writing while I'm working. And a lot of my work involves automated scripts, so I'll make the changes necessary to it, and then I'll run it, and then I'll tab back over and do some writing. But in a sense of multitasking, as do I multitask the chapter itself, which I'm just going to interpret and pretend that's what you were possibly also asking. I do that. I don't usually write a chapter from start to finish. I usually will jump around depending on what scene is the most clearly in my head or what just like, I don't really feel like writing this yet. I don't want to write Dawn's, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to skip to this. And then I'll come back and just kind of fill in. So I suffered from shiny object syndrome, or shiny scene syndrome, as the case may be. So I multitask and I also multitask.
Okay. And so, Crystal, you're going to ban Rosby from asking questions. Never.
No. Next
right.
question.
Ansel and Crystal, do you miss Harambe? Can anyone give me context? I don't know.
Harambe is the gorilla that got shot.
Aww.
When did a gorilla get shot?
It was a while ago. Like a kid fell in
I
the
remember that.
cage, and yeah, that thing.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Oh, that's horrible. Now I feel really sad.
All right, on to the next one. Now that we've all been bummed out. Let's see. Ansel Crystal, was there ever a scene that you imagined and you really wanted to write but left out because it wasn't relevant enough to your main character or plot? If so, what was it? So I can say for a fact, yes. Can I think of one off the top of my head just yet? No. Let's see if Crystal does. But yes, I know. I mean, I've cut scenes for sure.
I'm going to ask him real quick in private, so don't mind the silence. I just don't want to spoil this in case he does plan to ever write this someday.
Still,
Okay, well, there is something that he has actually written out and hasn't used because the story went a different direction, but it may come back as an AU. So the answer for that one is no. But it was a great example because it's a really funny little scene. But as far as my stuff is concerned, I know it's absolutely yes. Off the top of my head, I can't really think of really interesting scenes, but I wrote something for, well, when I was starting on the Velveteen Mask, I didn't quite know how I wanted to write Velvet's tone, how I wanted to write her narrative voice, because that's very important to me, is that a story should sound like the main character. So some of you who were here that day may know that I linked this in the chat, the first draft of the Velveteen Mask, where it was a little heated, but it did definitely get me into Velvet's. It's not like super, super dirty. Just for me, it's kind of dirty. But it also started off, that one had Velveteen Mask start off with Velvet going off to go see Dawn. Like, just right out the gate, Dawn's a part of her life, just accept it. And that was definitely a moment where I was like, I need to pull this one back a little bit. And I ended up not ever using that particular scene that I wrote where Velvet sneaks out and goes to get some flowers and drops them off, and they flirt on the couch. And so that's definitely something that got nixed. Another example would be for Lovey-Dovey and the Uncertain Stallion. That one, I had written a scene where they went on a date and it was just like this disastrous date where just like everything kept going wrong. And I ended up not using that because it kind of it detracted. And I'm sorry I'm rambling, guys. It detracted from the point being their conflict between each other and kind of pulled it out to like, just the universe is just sucking today. So I ended up not using that scene. Okay, I'm done talking now.
I recently wrote a therapy scene for Silent Night and scrapped it. So I don't think it works for trials very well. All right, Crystal. Let's see here. Any plans of writing stories for your characters' little ones? That's assuming, but I'll let Crystal. A Quill and Bake version of the Cutie Mark Crusaders, maybe.
Well, we do have confirmed little ones. Little Claire is adorable. Red's kind of a little one. Technically I already wrote a Red story, but I know what you mean. I maybe write something, maybe. That's kind of spoilers, so maybe.
Did you both watch 28 Pranks Later? I am unfamiliar with that.
Also unfamiliar.
Crystal, what happened to the dinos?
Okay, so I'm going to try really hard not to... Oh, we haven't seen today's episode yet, I'm sorry. We're usually late to the party on that one. Okay, so focusing and not rambling, dinos. What happened was I knew this was going to happen because they said that this game that I've been really enjoying they would release more hardcore kind of things and features and whatnot. And so I knew that was going into it, but then they did it, and I was really sad because they took away all the fun and the little roleplay aspects of being a daddy T-Rex with a whole bunch of baby raptors. Now it's a really hardcore, if you die, you start all the way over, and you have to start as this tiny little thing and work your way up, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. It's too much pressure. So there we go. The game is The Isle. It is a great dinosaur game. The progression stuff is too hardcore for me, but if you're really into that, I highly recommend it. It was a lot of fun.
Okay. All right, next question. Will you two cosplay as your OCs at BronyCon? We have discussed that, and we have talked about cosplaying before. What happens is we're both lazy and or busy. there is already talk about cosplay for next year's BronyCon, but it's not our characters, at least. Well, Crystal may have a couple of costumes. I've talked about potentially doing Silent Night, but we're also kind of lazy. So, any opinions on that, honey?
We're lazy. We always, every time we're always going to conventions and we're like, oh, we're totally going to do this. It's going to be amazing. And then, it's a week later. Oh, never mind. What Rosby and I are committed to doing for next year BronyCon is not a pony costume at all, but if anyone has seen Star versus the Forces of Evil, we are committed to being Star and Marco, and it's going to be great.
Yes. All right. Let's see. Crystal, joke question. Will you send me the right address next time?
Absolutely. I'm so sorry.
My wallet, sorry.
I'm so sorry. You have no idea how bad I feel about that.
And how bad my wallet feels about that. All right. Ansel, Crystal, what's the veil thing? So, Crystal and I are working on a collaboration story, as in, more collaboration than what we actually do, as in we are both co-writing. It's a new story set in Saddle Arabia, featuring a new cast that does take place in the Quill and Blade universe, but is not necessarily up to date where the universe is. Features a new cast and will not be a serial. It will be released in 4 parts. As we finish a part, we'll publish it. It'll probably be, I think we talked about 60,000 words per part, somewhere around 10 chapters, something along that. We're not going to crush it and force it, but it's something we're working on. We call it our kind of our third tent pole, so to speak, because again, it does not focus in any way, shape, or form on any of the current cast, and nor will it. They're not in any way, shape, or form important to the story. So that'll be our trying a new set of characters and seeing how people go. And those characters will be horses, not ponies. Rosby, why are you so amazing? How well do you believe Crystal and Ansel portrayed you in the stories?
The first question, I do not know how to answer that because I don't feel I'm as awful.
You cut
out.
I think am I back?
You're back.
Okay. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened. I don't know how to say if I'm amazing or something. I feel like I'm not. I feel like it's all a fake, whatever, something, words. As for how well I was portrayed, I don't see it as me. I've never had an OC and thought this is me. So, I guess they got part of what quote unquote me as Rosby or whatever, but I mean, it's not me. I don't know how to answer this. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. Okay, we can go on now, I guess.
I just wanted to cut in real quick. Rosby, were you answering why are you so awful or why are you so awesome?
Both.
Oh, okay.
I
Because
guess.
the question is why are you amazing?
Oh, well, amazing, awesome is basically the same thing. It's called synonyms.
You were being so humble that I thought you were answering the wrong question.
All right. Let's see here. Next question for Rosby. Was the sandwich dry or wet?
I don't even remember where it was. I think it was either Jimmy John's or Subway. So I guess dry wet. I mean, it's a dry sandwich, but it has meat in it that's not dry, so I don't know.
Fair enough. Let's see here. Crystal, what was the worst movie you've seen this year?
I do not remember the name of it, but Six knows what I'm talking about. It was that Bollywood movie that was just full of tears that we cried at. That one was probably the worst movie.
Are you sure? Food Fight?
Oh, was that this year? Oh, then it was Food Fight.
All right, Rosby. The scene where Rosby drenched Crystal with the cloud, is that based on a real prank?
No. Generally, I like my pranks to be more mental, whatever, as opposed to dumping someone in a pool or something, because what if they have a phone? I don't want to ruin their phone. I'm a respectful pranker.
That is very kind. I feel the same way. You should not do property damage. Let's see here. 28 pranks later is new MLP, new episode, new question. Then in 2 weeks, the changelings will return. Will that bring a new wave? That will bring a new popularity with them. No kidding. Any ideas of having them appear in shape or form? So in Quill and Blade, we do have some changeling lore. It has absolutely nothing to do with any fan and changeling lore I've ever seen, any comic lore I've ever seen, any story I've ever read, or description I've ever read. Will they make an appearance? I don't know. The short answer I give with changelings is we have an answer for them. We know what they are. We know about them, but we've just got so much other stuff going on. I don't know if they're ever going to make it in to the main story. Maybe they'll make it into a side story. But the short answer is, will it be soon? No. Will the popularity push that? No. Is there anything of them like anything in the comics or other stories? No. And that's another reason why we don't do them. I tend to shy away from anything canon or super fanon, which is why I don't have traditional bat ponies, because I really don't want to hear about how, such and such author wrote, Chrissy this way, and this one talked about this hive, and what about this changeling war, and this one, or what about when this one had sex with Twilight Sparkle and they made Popper Fresh half changeling six monster. I don't care. That's your story, and I don't want to hear about it. So I guess the short answer there is no. But if anybody does write a story about Popper Fresh, half Twilight, half Changeling, six monster, I do want royalties on that. And also, if anyone does write that and it's even remotely decent and appropriate, I will advertise it. So there you go. Have fun with that. But again, the main character has to be Popper Fresh, six monster, the half Twilight, half Changeling love child. Consensual. All right, Ansel, are we going to learn more about what happened to the old houses of day and night and what happened at the disastrous meeting? Yes, we will have all of that revealed and wrapped up by the end of Trials, for sure. That is the main overarching plot for the entirety of the universe, and we will have an answer and all will be known. Okay, well, that is the last question. I'll do a last call. We'll do about 5 more minutes of questions. So if anyone else has another question, dump them in the live event queues.
This will be on YouTube. Technically, it is on YouTube right now. I just don't know if the sound's working. If it's not, then I can borrow Posted's recording because he's wonderful.
Yes. Are we debating whether or not Twinkle, Monster, Twilight, half, whatever? I've already forgotten. What's the name of the character that I just made? Papa Fresh Six Monster. Six. It's Six. I was looking at Six's name at the time. Okay, let's see here. Well, there's a question shortage because we sometimes do this once a month. And yes, Nala, go for it. Share the last one first, though. Let's show it because I don't know if everyone's seen that. So if we do the last one first.
I'm sorry, I was pulling up the YouTube thing. I completely missed the question.
Can Nalu share what she's working on? The answer is yes, but I want her to share.
Which one, Wintermoon?
Yes, Wintermoon first.
Hi, I snuck in when you weren't looking.
That's okay. You're always welcome here. I read the chat we had this morning. It was like you were on the other side of her. And yes, unfortunately, or fortunately, however you want to look at it, that was 100% accurate to what was happening. So yes, if anyone has not seen this, this is what Nocturna looks like. Nocturna the Mentor. She is a very big alicorn. And there's some hints, perhaps, in this old image here. So Nalu and I are working on a project together to display the Quill and Blade alicorns. Not Celestial and Luna, because everyone knows what they look like. But so this is what Nocturna looks like. Now, Nalu has a teaser for you. Yeah, we do need a banana for scale. Suffice to say, Nocturna is the biggest. She is, I think, no, you are drawing them to scale, or are we not, since they're going to be separate? How's that working? I've forgotten what we discussed.
No, they are going to be to scale, so if you put them right next to one another, they'll show the size difference properly.
Okay.
In theory.
So yes, they will be to scale. So now, Nocturna, of course, is the largest, and oldest, other than being dead, but you know. And now,
Worst teaser ever.
no, any teaser's good teaser. Oh, that! Oh, wow, you really just teased them. That's
Mhm.
that's some harsh crap right there, girl.
I love it.
If you click it, you can actually see the outline of the alicorn, and that's going to be Azuleka.
Now I just want to like put bananas on them.
Well, you might have to do a
Secret
version
bananas.
with bananas. Yes, that's your challenge. Can you sneak a banana somewhere in on all of them?
That's dangerous.
I'm not against it. I'm not against it. Challenge accepted. So yes, that's a project that Nella and I are working on together, is to display the alicorns so that people can associate a little bit more with them, instead of them just being these mystery things.
Jet Cannon asked who Azuleka is.
Azuleka was the ruler of the night. She was the princess when Luna was the student. But she, well, I don't know how far, I don't want to spoil anything, so I don't know how far you are in anything. Stuff happened. Oh, okay. Yeah, she was the ruler at the time. She got murdered too. I mean, they all did, so, I mean, that's all four of them. All dead. By bananas. Secret over.
Darn it!
Now I gotta work bananas into the story somehow. Crap.
Make it banana pancakes.
Maybe so. Grey Maelstrom comes home, and the first thing she does is breaks down and starts just throwing bananas at ponies. You get a banana!
Would not be out of character.
You get a banana! Everyone gets a banana! Which really cheeses off Crystal Banana. Okay, well, so that is going to be it then for the live event as far as the official, any kind of orchestrated stuff. As always, following live events, we do normally do a chat and chatter, meaning, you know, everyone hang out in public, chat. Maybe we'll respond, maybe we'll something, blah, blah, blah.
Feel free, if you are not a regular to our Discord channel, to consider becoming a regular.